Governments lie. Not occasionally, not accidentally, systematically, strategically, and often for decades before anyone finds out. These are the operations that were classified, the programs that were denied, the incidents that were lost until they weren't. These are 50 secrets that governments buried, and the truth they couldn't keep hidden forever. Welcome to the Vault of Darkness. Number 50. The United States tested biological weapons on its own cities. From 1949 to 1969, the U.S. military conducted open-air biological weapons tests over American cities without informing residents. In 1950, a Navy ship sprayed bacteria over San Francisco for 6 days. 11 people were hospitalized. 1 died. The government denied responsibility for decades. Documents revealed in 1977 confirmed 239 open-air tests were conducted over populated American areas during this period. Number 49. Operation Northwoods. In 1962, the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff unanimously signed a proposal to stage terrorist attacks on American civilians, blowing up ships, shooting people in the streets of Miami, hijacking planes, and blame it all on Cuba to justify an invasion. President Kennedy rejected it. It remained classified until 1997. The document is publicly available today. Read it yourself. Number 48. The U.S. government poisoned alcohol during Prohibition. In the 1920s, the U.S. government directed manufacturers to add poison, including methanol, which causes blindness and death, to industrial alcohol, knowing bootleggers would steal and redistribute it. This was a deliberate policy intended to deter drinking. An estimated 10,000 Americans were killed by government-poisoned liquor before Prohibition ended in 1933. Number 47. MKUltra. The CIA's mind control program. From 1953 to 1973, the CIA ran illegal experiments on American and Canadian citizens, dosing them with LSD without consent, using electroshock, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and psychological torture in attempts to develop mind control techniques. Patients in mental hospitals, students, prisoners. At least one man, Frank Olson, died after being secretly dosed. His death was ruled a suicide. His family disputes this to this day. Number 46. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. From 1932 to 1972, 40 years, the U.S. government enrolled 399 black men with syphilis in a study and deliberately withheld treatment, even after penicillin became widely available in the 1940s. The purpose was to observe what untreated syphilis did to the human body. The men were told they were receiving treatment. 28 died directly from syphilis. 100 died from complications. 40 wives were infected. 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. The study ended only because a whistleblower leaked it to the press. Number 45. Operation Paperclip. After World War II, the United States government secretly recruited over 1,600 Nazi scientists, engineers, and doctors. Men with known war crimes records, gave them new identities, and put them to work for NASA, the military, and intelligence agencies. Wernher von Braun, the man who designed the rockets that killed thousands of London civilians using slave labor, became the director of NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. Number 44. The UK government tested nerve agents on soldiers. British soldiers were told they were participating in research to cure the common cold. Instead, they were exposed to sarin, mustard gas, and other chemical warfare agents. At least one soldier, Ronald Madison, died in 1953 after nerve agent was applied directly to his skin. A 2004 inquest ruled his death unlawful killing. Over 3,000 veterans participated in tests they never consented to. Number 43. The CIA trafficked drugs to fund black operations. During the 1980s, while the Reagan administration publicly declared a war on drugs, elements of the CIA facilitated cocaine trafficking by Nicaraguan Contra rebels into the United States. This was exposed by journalist Gary Webb in 1996. He was professionally destroyed. His career collapsed. In 2004, he died of 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The coroner ruled it suicide. Number 42. Operation Chaos. The CIA, prohibited by its charter from conducting domestic operations, ran a secret program from 1967 to 1974 targeting American anti-war protesters, civil rights leaders, and journalists. Files were compiled on 7,200 U.S. citizens and 1,000 domestic organizations. This was entirely illegal. When discovered, the CIA director called it the family jewels. Number 41. COINTELPRO, the FBI's war on black leaders. From 1956 to 1971, the FBI ran a covert program to neutralize political activists it deemed subversive. Targets included the NAACP, the Black Panther Party, and Martin Luther King Jr. The FBI sent King an anonymous letter urging him to commit suicide before he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. It included a recording of alleged extramarital encounters and a warning. The letter was signed, "King, there is only one thing left for you to do." Number 40. The Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened. The 1964 Gulf of Tonkin incident, where North Vietnamese torpedo boats allegedly attacked a U.S. destroyer, prompting congressional authorization for the Vietnam War, was fabricated. Declassified documents released in 2005 confirmed the second attack, cited as justification for war, never occurred. 58,000 Americans and an estimated 3.5 million Vietnamese died in a war started on a lie. Number 39. The UK government deliberately contaminated a Scottish island. In 1942, British scientists tested anthrax bombs on Gruinard Island off Scotland by releasing spores on sheep. The island remained so heavily contaminated it was off limits to the public until 1990. 48 years. The UK government secretly purchased the island to prevent landowners from discovering what had been done to it. Number 38. Operation Gladio. After World War II, NATO secretly established a network of paramilitary units across Western Europe. The Italian unit, connected to far-right extremists, was linked to bombings, assassinations, and terrorist attacks during the 1970s and 80s. The goal? Blamed the attacks on the left to discredit communist political parties. Hundreds of civilians died. Operation Gladio was officially confirmed by the Italian Prime Minister in 1990. Number 37. The Soviet government hid a nuclear disaster for decades. The 1957 Kishin disaster, a nuclear waste explosion at the Mayak nuclear facility, was the third worst nuclear accident in history. Approximately 270,000 people were exposed to radiation. Villages were secretly evacuated. The existence of the disaster was not acknowledged by the Soviet government and remained unknown in the West until 1992. Number 36. The U.S. government forcibly sterilized thousands of its own citizens. Under eugenics laws that existed in 32 American states, over 60,000 Americans were forcibly sterilized, including people with disabilities, the mentally ill, poor people, and disproportionately people of color. The Supreme Court upheld this practice in 1927. The decision has never been formally overturned. The Nazis explicitly cited American eugenics programs as models for their own racial hygiene laws. Number 35. The Canadian government ran residential schools as slow genocide. From the 1880s to 1996, Indigenous children in Canada were forcibly removed from families, banned from speaking their languages, and subjected to systematic physical and sexual abuse in church-run schools funded by the government. An estimated 150,000 children passed through the system. Thousands died. The unmarked graves of over 1,300 children have been found at former school sites since 2021. This continued until 1996. Number 34. The United States overthrew Iran's democracy in 1953. A CIA-engineered coup overthrew Iran's democratically elected prime minister and reinstalled the Shah. The reason? He had nationalized Iran's oil industry, which had been controlled by British Petroleum. The coup was officially acknowledged by the CIA in 2013. The instability it created led directly to the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Every crisis that followed traces back to 1953. Number 33. The United States overthrew Guatemala's democracy in 1954. Guatemala's democratically elected president attempted land reform, redistributing unused land from an American corporation to poor Guatemalan farmers. The CIA trained a paramilitary force, invaded, and installed a military dictatorship. Guatemala subsequently descended into a 36-year civil war that killed 200,000 people. Number 32. The United States knew about the Holocaust and did nothing. By 1942, the U.S. State Department had confirmed reports of the systematic extermination of European Jews. The reports were suppressed within the department. The War Refugee Board was not established until 1944. 2 years after confirmation, The bombing of rail lines to Auschwitz was repeatedly rejected. It has never been adequately explained why. Number 31. The UK secret court system. The United Kingdom operates a system of secret courts, where national security evidence can be presented to a judge without the defendant or their legal counsel being present. Neither the defendant nor the public can know what evidence was used against them. This is legal. It is ongoing. Dozens of cases have been decided this way since 2013. Number 30. China's social credit system. Not a secret in China, but suppressed internationally. The system assigns scores to citizens based on behavior, financial history, social media activity, court records, and surveillance data. Low scores result in being banned from flights, trains, private schools, and certain hotels. Western technology companies supplied components of the infrastructure that makes it possible. Number 29. The UK suppressed evidence of Saudi Arabia's role in terrorism. A classified British intelligence report into the funding of extremist groups, completed in 2016, was suppressed by the government for years. When partially released, it confirmed Saudi Arabia as a key source of funding for terrorist groups operating in the UK. The British government delayed release during trade negotiations with Saudi Arabia for billions in arms sales. Number 28. The US military covered up the massacre at My Lai. On March 16, 1968, US soldiers killed between 347 and 504 unarmed South Vietnamese civilians, elderly men, women, children, and infants. The army covered it up for over a year. When it finally broke, 26 soldiers were charged. One was convicted. He served 3.5 years under house arrest before being pardoned. Number 27. The US military tested biological weapons on its own sailors. In the 1960s, the US military conducted biological and chemical weapons tests on American military personnel without their knowledge or consent. Veterans who participated were not told for decades. Many became ill. The Pentagon denied the tests occurred until 2000, when documents were finally declassified. Number 26. Echelon, the global surveillance network. Since the 1970s, a surveillance network operated by the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand has intercepted telephone calls, faxes, emails, and satellite communications globally. It was denied for decades, confirmed by the European Parliament in 2001. Edward Snowden's 2013 disclosures revealed it had expanded far beyond what anyone imagined. Every communication you send passes through infrastructure they can access. Number 25. The US Army released bacteria into the New York subway. In 1966, the US Army released a biological warfare simulant into the New York subway system to study how a biological attack would spread. Millions of passengers were unknowingly exposed. Similar tests were conducted in Washington, D.C. The tests were not disclosed to the public or elected officials. They were classified until the 1970s. Number 24. The secret presidential emergency action documents. Since at least the Eisenhower administration, U.S. presidents have held pre-signed emergency orders granting themselves extraordinary wartime powers. These orders can suspend civil liberties, authorize mass detention, and override constitutional protections. Their existence has been confirmed. Their contents remain almost entirely classified. No congressional oversight of these documents has ever been legislated. Number 23. The UK's Prevent program surveils Muslim communities. Since 2007, the UK's counter-terrorism strategy has required teachers, doctors, and social workers to report individuals suspected of radicalization, disproportionately targeting Muslim communities. Children as young as 3 have been referred. In 2021, a government-appointed reviewer found systemic problems with its implementation. It continues. Number 22. The CIA's psychic spying program. From 1978 to 1995, the U.S. government spent approximately $20 million on psychic spying. The program employed remote viewers to gather intelligence on Soviet military installations using supposed extrasensory perception. The program was eventually ended after a review concluded it had no demonstrated intelligence value. Decades of classified budget had been spent on it. Number 21. The Australian government stole Aboriginal children for 70 years. Between 1910 and 1970, an estimated 1 in 3 Indigenous children were removed from their families under government policy. The policy operated under the explicit goal of eliminating indigenous culture through forced assimilation. Australia did not formally apologize until 2008. Number 20. The U.S. government tested LSD on mental patients. At a Montreal institute, a CIA-funded psychiatrist conducted experiments including massive electroshock therapy, drug-induced sleep for months at a time, and continuous recorded messages designed to break down and reprogram personality. Patients admitted for depression emerged with permanent amnesia, unable to remember their children's names. Families received small out-of-court settlements in the 1980s. Number 19. The U.S. accused the Soviet Union of chemical weapons use, based on bee feces. In 1981, the Reagan administration accused the Soviet Union of supplying chemical weapons to communist forces in Laos and Cambodia. Samples were collected. The UN investigated. The conclusion of independent scientists: the substance was bee feces. Mass swarm defecation events, known to occur in the region. The Reagan administration had presented bee feces as a chemical weapons accusation to the UN Security Council. Number 18. Western governments knew about the Rwandan genocide in advance. Declassified documents show the UK and US were warned repeatedly about preparations for mass killings in Rwanda before April 1994. A United Nations general sent a now famous fax to UN headquarters in January 1994, detailing plans for mass murder. He was ordered to take no action. 800,000 people were killed in 100 days. The United States deliberately avoided using the word genocide during the killings, because using it would have legally required action. Number 17. The NSA built a backdoor into global encryption. Documents from Edward Snowden revealed that the NSA had deliberately engineered a backdoor into an encryption standard adopted globally. Companies worldwide use this compromised standard in commercial products. This means the NSA had the ability to decrypt communications secured by a standard they themselves corrupted. Number 16. Operation Condor. In the 1970s, the intelligence services of Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil, all US-backed military dictatorships, formed a coordinated network to hunt down and murder political opponents across international borders. The CIA provided training, funding, and support. Between 60,000 and 80,000 people were killed or disappeared. This was confirmed by declassified documents and trial records. Number 15. The U.S. covered up civilian drone strike casualties. For years, the U.S. military publicly claimed its drone strike program killed almost exclusively militants. Leaked documents show that in one 5-month operation in Afghanistan, 90% of those killed were not the intended targets. They were classified as enemy killed in action, despite being bystanders. This classification was policy, not accident. Number 14. The British government ran psychological operations against its own citizens during the Troubles. Declassified documents confirm that British intelligence services in Northern Ireland ran extensive disinformation campaigns, including forging documents to implicate innocent people, running agent provocateurs within both loyalist and Republican groups, and in some cases having foreknowledge of attacks that were allowed to proceed. Full disclosure remains blocked. Number 13. The United States knew Japan was about to surrender before Hiroshima. This is contested among historians, but supported by significant declassified evidence. Japan was attempting to negotiate surrender terms through the Soviet Union before the atomic bombs were dropped. Internal U.S. documents show awareness of Japan's peace overtures. The atomic bombs may have been dropped, at least partly, to demonstrate capability to the Soviet Union before the Cold War fully began. Number 12. The UK government concealed the real scale of COVID-19 care home deaths. Government policy discharged untested hospital patients into care homes. Official data on the resulting deaths was not published for months. The true scale of care home deaths, estimated at over 40,000 in England alone, was not disclosed during the period when policy was being made. Number 11. The U.S. government planned to assassinate foreign leaders. A 1975 U.S. Senate investigation revealed that the CIA had plotted to assassinate at least 8 foreign leaders, including Fidel Castro. 8 confirmed attempts: Patrice Lumumba of the Congo and others. Several of these targets were killed, though direct CIA involvement in the deaths was not conclusively established. Number 10. Australia's Pine Gap Facility, a joint US-Australian satellite surveillance facility in the Northern Territory. For decades, the Australian government publicly described it as a joint space research facility. Declassified documents confirmed it is a critical intelligence facility used for signals gathering, tracking missile launches, monitoring global communications, and targeting drone strikes, including in countries with which Australia is not at war. Number 9. The Soviet government covered up the sinking of the Kursk. On August 12, 2000, the Russian submarine Kursk sank in the Barents Sea. 118 crew died. Initial reports claimed the submarine had sunk immediately with no survivors. However, 23 sailors survived the initial explosion and remained alive for hours in a sealed compartment. Notes found on their bodies proved it. Russia declined Norwegian and British offers to assist with rescue operations for 5 days. By the time foreign divers reached the compartment, everyone was dead. Number 8. The United States authorized torture and called it enhanced interrogation. Following the September 11 attacks, the CIA subjected detainees to waterboarding, sleep deprivation for up to 180 hours, stress positions, confinement in small boxes, and mock executions. A Senate report found that the techniques did not produce unique intelligence that saved lives, contradicting the program's stated justification. The lawyers who wrote the legal memos authorizing it were never prosecuted. Number 7. Operation Anthropoid was covered up to protect an informant. During World War II, British operatives parachuted into Czechoslovakia and assassinated SS General Reinhard Heydrich, the man directly responsible for planning the Holocaust. The Nazis responded by liquidating the village of Litas, killing all men and boys, sending women to a concentration camp, and gassing the children. For decades, the identity of the informant who betrayed the operatives' hiding place was protected by Czech and British intelligence. The cover-up lasted into the 21st century. Number 6. The real scale of American surveillance. Edward Snowden's 2013 disclosures revealed that the NSA was collecting the phone records of hundreds of millions of Americans, monitoring communications of allied world leaders including Angela Merkel, and had installed surveillance systems on Google, Facebook, and Apple infrastructure. The existence of a secret court that approves almost every surveillance request submitted to it was confirmed. Snowden was charged under the Espionage Act and lives in Moscow. No NSA official was prosecuted. Number 5. The U.S. government knew about September 11 warnings and failed to act. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented in the official commission report. The CIA had identified 2 of the eventual hijackers as operatives in January 2000 and tracked them to the U.S., but did not share this with the FBI. In August 2001, President Bush received a briefing titled Bin Laden Determined to Strike in U.S. He took no action. The failure was systemic, documented, and nobody was fired. Number 4. The UK government knew about Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile? BBC presenter, charity worker, friend of prime ministers and royals, abused an estimated 450 victims over 60 years in hospitals, schools, and BBC premises. Multiple police complaints were made during his lifetime. The BBC received internal warnings. His victims were dismissed. He died in 2011 with his reputation intact. No institution took responsibility. Number 3. The United States spent 70 years covering up UFO programs. In June 2023, a former intelligence officer testified under oath before the U.S. Congress that the U.S. government has possessed non-human craft and biological material for decades and that a secret, unacknowledged program exists to reverse engineer it. This is not tabloid news. This is sworn congressional testimony. Whether true or not, this is what a senior intelligence official told Congress on the record, under oath. Number 2. The global financial system was rigged, and banks paid fines instead of facing trial. Between 2012 and 2020, multiple investigations revealed that a benchmark interest rate used in hundreds of trillions of dollars of financial products was being systematically manipulated by major banks. HSBC laundered hundreds of millions in drug cartel money. Major banks fraudulently packaged and sold mortgage securities that collapsed the global economy in 2008. In each case, banks paid fines and no senior banker went to prison. The fines were treated as operating costs. Number 1. Governments have always known what they are doing. Every atrocity on this list was committed by people with full knowledge of what they were doing. They wrote memos about it. They held meetings. They signed orders. They had legal counsel draft justifications. They knew. The classified stamp is not applied because the information would harm national security. It is applied because the information would harm the people who made the decision. Classification is not about safety. It is about accountability. And as long as we accept that, there will always be a number one. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Documents leak. Whistleblowers speak. Archives open. The question is never whether the truth will surface. The question is whether anyone will be held accountable when it does. History suggests they won't, but history also shows that the truth always outlasts the lie. Welcome to the Vault of Darkness.